All right, Pete Buttigieg has ended his 2020 presidential bid, triggering a major shift in the Democratic race ahead of Super Tuesday tomorrow. The former South Bend mayor made the announcement yesterday, but he is yet to publicly endorse one of the remaining candidates.
This comes as Joe Biden looks to capitalize on his South Carolina primary victory. He's trading attacks with frontrunner Bernie Sanders, who has the most delegates right now. However, that could all change after tomorrow. Ed O'Keefe has the latest from Washington.
Buttigieg's sudden exit came as a surprise, and the timing is significant. He signaled the decision is designed to stop frontrunner Senator Bernie Sanders from amassing an insurmountable lead in delegates on Tuesday.
The truth is that the path has narrowed to a close.
Former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, the first openly gay candidate for president, brought his historic candidacy to an end in his home state.
The best way to keep faith with those goals and ideals is to step aside and help bring our party and our country together.
Buttigieg has argued that if Senator Bernie Sanders is the nominee, it could hurt Democrats in the House and Senate, something he alluded to last night.
So I urge everyone who supported me to continue in the cause of ensuring that we bring change to the White House and working to win the absolutely critical down-ballot races.
Speaking in Los Angeles, Sanders said he knows that some Democratic Party leaders are now trying to block his rise. But he encouraged Buttigieg's supporters to join him.
I just want to welcome all of his supporters into our movement.
A January CBS News Battleground Tracker poll found that among Buttigieg's supporters, their second choice would be Senator Elizabeth Warren, followed by former Vice President Joe Biden.
Just days ago, the press and the pundits declared my candidacy dead. Now, thanks to the heart of the Democratic Party in South Carolina, I'm very much alive.
Coming off a decisive victory in South Carolina, Biden focused his attacks on Sanders.
People they're not looking for revolution, they're looking for results.
With 6 candidates still in the race, former Mayor Michael Bloomberg told 60 Minutes he won't quit, even if he doesn't finish in the top 3 on Tuesday.
You'll keep going?
Yeah, sure. There's an election 7 or so days later. There's another one 14 days later.
Bloomberg was one of several candidates visiting Alabama yesterday to campaign and commemorate the 55th anniversary of the Bloody Sunday March in Selma. But when he delivered remarks at the historic Brown Chapel AME Church, several congregants stood up and turned their backs on him and remained standing throughout his speech. Anne-Marie and Vlad?
Ed, thank you. So for more on this, let us bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlyn Huey-Burns. She's following the latest from Houston, Texas, one of the Super Tuesday states. So Caitlyn, Vlad and I were just sort of chit-chatting about the strategic benefits of Pete Buttigieg pulling out now. Because for some people, what didn't come as a surprise, I was shocked when I saw it pop up on the news that he was pulling out because, you know, he did so well in Iowa, and I thought maybe he still had some momentum to take advantage of. Can you talk to us about the significance of the timing, why he chose now to drop out of the race, you think?
Well, the timing is hugely significant, even if it was surprising, because the campaign was talking about just a couple of days ago their Super Tuesday strategy. Remember, all of these candidates have been talking about how critical Super Tuesday will be and how many delegates were still left to be claimed, and that this race was far from over. But the Buttigieg decision speaks to a recognition that there wasn't a path forward for him, and that by staying in this race, it could potentially allow someone like Bernie Sanders to keep moving on. And that's kind of the dynamic that I'm watching for in these next few days, is whether and how this party starts to coalesce around an alternative to Bernie Sanders, who's expected to have a good night on Tuesday night because he's expected to do well in states like California, where over 400 delegates are at stake. Pete Buttigieg, though, I think will have a long history in this campaign. You know, if you kind of compare his trajectory to Joe Biden's, Buttigieg can run for president for 30 more years, really, if he wants to. And it's also interesting, a fun fact, you guys, Pete Buttigieg getting out of the race means that Joe Biden is the youngest man in the Democratic race right now. He's 77. Michael Bloomberg and Bernie Sanders are 78.
That's really interesting, Caitlyn. So let me ask you about Mayor Pete Buttigieg's decision and what it means for Senator Amy Klobuchar's campaign. I note that Minnesota is one of the states that will be voting tomorrow, but it's not even clear that she's dominating in her home state.
Right. I'm watching for her and Elizabeth Warren. They both are competing in their home states on Tuesday. Minnesota and Massachusetts, respectively. And we don't know if they're going to win. Actually, Elizabeth Warren is trailing significantly behind Bernie Sanders in Massachusetts. This will be a time of reckoning for their campaigns. If you look at the returns from the first 4 states, we're here in Houston in a park, so you may hear a lawnmower behind us getting ready for the day. If you look at those first 4 states, Elizabeth Warren came behind Pete Buttigieg in those states, and especially critical in South Carolina, where the African-American vote is so crucial, not only there, but heading into these Super Tuesday states and beyond into more southern states as well. So there will be questions about whether they can make the case to continue. They'll be talking a lot about strategy. Amy Klobuchar last night had kind of a tough night, had to cancel an event in her home state because of protests from Black Lives Matter. There's going to be a spotlight on her and others as Democrats want to really narrow this field, and as Joe Biden was able to show that he still has very strong and loyal support from black voters, at least at this stage in the race.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting, the event that she could not appear at in her own state, because suddenly it occurred to me, she has really avoided widespread scrutiny on her record as a prosecutor, because I guess she just wasn't polling high enough to be in the crosshairs. So, Caitlyn, as we look ahead to tomorrow, Senator Bernie Sanders leads our latest CBS News Battleground Tracker polls in California and Texas. Will victories in those 2 states essentially hand him the Democratic nomination?
Well, about a third of the delegates are going to be at stake on Tuesday night, and Democrats say that this is a crucial part of the campaign, although there will still be time. But again, it depends on who gets out of the race. You heard Michael Bloomberg in that interview with 60 Minutes say that he is going to stay in as long as possible, maybe outside of those Super Tuesday contests. So the Democrats really want Tuesday to be a defining kind of moment for the campaign and force some of these candidates to really reevaluate their paths forward. But there is this big question about whether a candidate can actually secure the delegates outright and whether this is going to be going on for a long time.
Caitlyn, we will warn you if that lawnmower is coming up right behind you if you need to jump out of the way.
Yeah.
Thank you. I thought it was going to sneak up right here. It was getting very close.
No, but you know you've made it in broadcast journalism, Caitlyn, when you can keep your train of thought and not even look behind you as some big machine is roaring up behind you. That's all you need to know.
Well, we are interviewing Joe Biden later today, so I don't want to get injured before that interview.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of former Vice President Biden, I wonder how big. There are 2 questions that I keep thinking about, Caitlyn, with his big win in South Carolina. One is, again, and we've talked about this, Caitlyn and Marie, in the past, the importance of the African-American vote for Democrats and how important it was for Congressman James Clyburn to come out and endorse the former vice president, and how many people in South Carolina listened to Congressman Clyburn and went out and cast that vote for former Vice President Biden. And I wonder, has this energized his campaign, even though Congressman Clyburn himself has said that there are serious structural issues with Biden's campaign that need to be addressed? Not only are they not raising enough money, but they even have issues with the people around former Vice President Biden. And it's going to be crucial to get that fixed if they want to continue moving forward.
That's right. The campaign certainly feels energized by this South Carolina victory because it was such a resounding victory. And that's what they really wanted, to be able to show their stamina in these next couple of contests. But there is this question about whether this support translates to the other states. Are there any more James Clyburns left to help the Biden campaign in some of these Super Tuesday states? I know Clyburn has been campaigning for Biden in North Carolina, which holds a contest on Tuesday, too, and where the African-American vote will be critical there as well. There's also this question because Joe Biden had such a strong personal connection to South Carolina. How does that translate to these other states? And remember, this race is turning so quickly. Tuesday is just tomorrow. We've just had that South Carolina contest. This narrative changes really fast. And so what does Wednesday morning look like if Bernie Sanders at least has the storyline? Remember, all of this is a race for delegates. That's why these candidates are staying in. That's why candidates are still competing in states where they might not actually win outright. So So the delegate race is still very much on and very much in play. But it also is about the narrative and momentum. And for Joe Biden, he really needs that, because when you look at his fundraising, he was able to raise about $10 million, his campaign says, after that South Carolina victory. But Bernie Sanders was able to raise $46 million in the month of February alone. So how do you continue to compete with that kind of money? And this is why Democrats want this field to narrow and to consolidate around a couple of candidates.
All right, Caitlyn, thank you so much.